Welcome to FastCast, short-form weekly webcasts on FAST and SBIR-related topics. This week, we will cover the basics of the SBIR program. You can always visit arrowheadcenter.nmsu.edu/nmfast for more information. On to the show. Dr. Paul Firth, what is the SBIR program?
So SBIR stands for Small Business Innovation Research. Sometimes people pronounce it SBIR. And it's a federally funded program that encourages domestic small businesses to engage in federal research and development that has the potential for commercialization. Through inclusion of qualified small business in the nation's federal R&D arena, high-tech innovation is stimulated in the United States, and the entrepreneurial spirit of our citizens is encouraged as we meet specific research and development goals. It's funded by a federal act that dictates federal agencies with external research and development budgets of greater than $100 million are required to set aside 3.2% of that money for the SBIR programs. The program has four stated goals: to stimulate technological innovation, to meet federal research and development needs, to foster and encourage participation in innovation and entrepreneurship by socially and economically disadvantaged businesses, and also to increase private sector commercialization of innovations that are derived from federal research and development funding. This is essentially a way to bring exciting and innovative technologies to the market for small businesses that might not otherwise have a way to penetrate the marketplace. The SBIR program is a three-phase program where phase one is the time where the small business is verifying its ideas to prove the technological feasibility of their innovation. I like to think of this as the pre-prototype phase, where you're building something and you're testing it, but in a very limited environment like a laboratory or an office. Phase two is where you develop a working prototype that gets tested out in the field. And this is also a time when the focus is on market commercialization. Phase three is when you're actually going into production and there's market entry. Phase three is not funded through the SBIR program, but requires funding outside of the SBIR programs.
Who participates in the SBIR program?
So the participation from the federal point of view is any agency that spends more than $100 million annually on external research and development. It includes 12 federal agencies. One of them manages the program. That's the Small Business Administration. The other 11 agencies are the ones that offer funding to small businesses. The funding schedule varies depending on the agency. For some of the smaller agencies that have smaller budgets, they only fund it annually. An example is USDA and Department of Commerce. Others do it on a semi-annual basis, and that tends to be those agencies that have a moderately large budget, such as the Department of Energy and NSF. Others do it more often than that, and they have the largest budgets, such as the Department of Defense. All of the agencies provide a 30-day window minimum from the time of the solicitation to the time when the application is due. Many of them, it's much longer than 30 days. And all of these agencies also provide a webinar where they will dive into the very specifics of their application process.
Who can participate in the program?
Any small business that meets the Small Business Administration's definitions or guidelines. They have to be organized as a for-profit business here in the United States. It's required that they have 500 or fewer employees, including any affiliates. The work must be done here in the United States with some very few exceptions. The other requirement is that greater than 50% of the business must be U.S. owned by individuals and independently operated. Some of the agencies allow for businesses that are also owned and controlled by venture capitalists, hedge funds, and private equity firms, provided no one of them has more than 50% of ownership and control. Another requirement is that the principal investigator, or PI, must be employed at the business for a minimum of 51% of their time based on a 40-hour work week. That principal investigator must have the appropriate expertise to oversee the project both scientifically and technically. But it's not required that the PI have a master's degree or a PhD, for example. Businesses also have to meet several registrations for these agencies. One of them is that they have to obtain a DUNS number for Data Universal Numbering System. It's issued by Dun & Bradstreet. It's free, but it can take up to 2 weeks and must be complete. All of these registrations, in fact, must be complete before the proposal can be submitted. A second one is they need to be registered in SAM, which is the System for Award Management. And this is a government database and issued by the General Services Administration. It's also free and can take up to 2 weeks to be issued. Another one that's common is SBA company registration. This is accessed through the website SBIR.gov, and they issue an SBC control ID, and again, it's free. The majority of the work has to be performed by the small business. The SBIR program allows for up to 33% of the work to be subcontracted to other businesses or individuals. It is a great way for the small business to outreach and partner with, for example, a research institution or another small business or another large business that has expertise and knowledge in a needed area for their proposal.
Now that we've covered who can participate, what is required?
There's several things that are required. The first is the business has to meet the guidelines of a small business as defined by the Small Business Administration. The second thing is they have to develop a proposal that meets the stated requirements of the agency. The proposal is typically 25 pages, including letters of support, the budget, and the budget justification. And there are very strict guidelines given by each agency. If you don't meet the guidelines, for example, the page limit requirements, your proposal will be returned without review. The other idea is that this whatever you're proposing must have commercial viability and technical merit. The program is supposed to be a feeder program that lets the small business move great new ideas into the marketplace. And finally, just to remember the acronym SBIR, it stands for Small Business Innovation Research. Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you, Dr. Firth. And thank you, audience, for watching and listening. As always, visit arrowheadcenter.msu.edu/nmfast for more information. Next time on FastCast, what is the STTR program and what are the differences between SBIR and STTR?